So good evening, everybody. Everyone, like to thank you for coming out to this session. As you all know, we are here to meet the author, the brand new, freshly minted author, Nana Kwaku Sakyi. So, before we get into the discussion, we have a special guest here, which is Nana Kwesi Konadu, who is the publisher of the book. So before we get into asking the questions with Nana Sechi, what I would like to do is give him an opportunity to say a few words. Um, as he's the owner, CEO of the Diasporic Africa Press. He's been very influential in the community, uh, in the educational community and in the econ community as well. Very knowledgeable, very humble brother, a lot of great information. He's a go-to for me in terms of resources when I have some questions, and he always provides excellent references or information in terms of just how this thing is all working. So without going too deep, Nana Kwesi Konadu, would you please say a few words? Did we lose?
Greetings, everyone.
There you
Yes,
go.
can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, wonderful. Greetings, everyone. I'm somewhere in the world at the moment, but I could not miss the very kind invitation and organization of Brother Kwesi Moore, and of course, the star of the hour is Nana Kwaku Sakyi. So, what I will do is sort of give a few minutes of sort of setting up, sort of an alley-oop. So I told him the alley-oop, and hopefully gets a slam dunk. So, um, my role, as I see it this evening, is really to be in the background and to help celebrate and also spread the word about this wonderful book, memoir, really a travelogue of a journey that is hard to capture into words, but he has succeeded, I think, in both counts. So I met Nana Kwaku Sakyi, not in person, but by phone, and he will remember this. This is back in 2000, in 2001, just before my first trip to Ghana, West Africa, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And he was introduced to me through Nana Kwabena Brown, which many of you also know in Washington, D.C., an elder of ours. And so Nana Kwaku Sakyi wrote me a letter introducing me to Kofi Sakyi Sapong, whom is the brother of Nana Kwaku Ifa, as well as the son of one of the sons of Nana Kofi Donko and others, wonderful people who are featured in the book. And so this is how our relation as friends and to brothers and basically family members at this point has grown. And in all these years, I'm talking about over 2 decades, um, I was really pleasantly shocked and amazed when I had the privilege before you all to read the early drafts of the manuscript, and of course, work on it with him in tandem to produce the volume that some of you have in hand or will have in hand very soon. And so, in my view, the memoir is really not so much a book, it's really a portal, sort of a window into a set of experiences that a lot of us can relate to, even if we are not healers or spiritualists ourselves, but can relate to in our own lives, because it's really a moment, several moments, snapshots of a broader journey, a broader pathway. And a lot of the themes hits on many themes I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. For example, um, the connection with a real place in Africa rather than an imaginary one that many of us are familiar with. Second, to be adopted by a real family and real people. I've always argued this, that the best way to reconnect with an African homeland or an African space is through its people at the village level. Ironically, as many of you know, the villages are more cleaner than the cities in Ghana. And so there's something to said about village life and the practicum of being there and being present. And so I won't take up much more time, but I want to just share with you just a few tidbits to say that this book and this memoir is more than simply just a travelogue or an account of sort of, blow by blow action. It's really a meditation and reflection of, a very intense period of Nana Kwaku Sakyi's life, that in many ways, like many of us, was part of his destiny, part of his journey. And so in reading it and in digesting it and in discussing and debating, this memoir, we're also basically enlivening and shedding a greater light on our own path. And so that, I hope that's the takeaway, at least one of the takeaways that you all may have from this. As a publisher of Diaspora Africa Press, we're located at www.dafricapress.com. We are more than honored to have been on the publishing journey for this, memoir of Nana Kwaku Sakyi. So I think my part is done. I'll turn it over to our wonderful host, who will then, of course, engage you and Nana Kwaku Sakyi. And then at any point, maybe later on, if there is a Q&A, I can swing back in. But I really don't want to take any more time or attention away from the person of the hour. So I'll turn it over to Brother Kwesi.
All right, thank you, brother, for those kind words. Really, really appreciate you. So without further ado, we are going to meet with or talk with Nana Kwaku Sakyi, who is the author of Becoming a Modern Healer from the Ancient World of Akom. So, Nana Sakyi, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you. As I was reading this book, I've had a million questions, so I'm sure a lot of the audience will have questions as well. So just for some housekeeping rules, what we're going to do, if you have a question that you would like to ask Nana Sakyi, please post it in the chat area. And when the time is appropriate, our sister will read it. Coach Adjuatano will read it because I might not see it. She'll be monitoring the questions, and then also might, if several people are asking the same question, she'll summarize the question and pose the question to Nana Sakyi as well. So I will start off with asking some questions, and then we'll give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions, and we'll just go back and forth. So this is a dialogue. We're here to just have a conversation. We're here to talk. We're here to learn. We're here to experience what Nana Sakyi has done and to get it directly from the horse's mouth. So having said that, Nana Sakyi, again, welcome. And I really appreciate you writing this book. And I also thank Nana Kwesi Konadu for publishing it, because I'm sure it was challenge in terms of some of the things that were written or should not have been written. So having said that, my first question to you was what was the overall message that you wanted to take in this book?
No, this can't be.
Not on my course. So let me
Kristone, the woman I know was from training.
Hold on.
You might have to mute her then.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute her. Let me find her.
Okay.
She's
muted now.
She's muted. Yes. Okay. So my first question to you is, what was the overall message you wanted to deliver with this book?
Again, I thank you all very much for hosting me and to talk about my journey or memoir in writing this book. Originally, this book was never intended to be published. As those who have read it see, I started writing all of this since 1989 and sat on it for a long time. I did go through back and forth many times in my mind, should I publish this, should I not? And a lot of it had a lot of information in there that I didn't want to just put out there for public consumption. And so I pretty much wrote this memoir, all my journey. I basically was referring to it as a journal for the person who would inherit me, so they will have a foundation. And so that was my intent, to keep it attached to the shrine and to explain all the parts of healing and everything. And also it served as a recount of my experience daily there in Ghana. Being there in Ghana was a challenging experience at the beginning, being the only one there, not having friends and family there and others to keep my company. So writing served that purpose as a mean of release and recounting my days. So I began to just document everything, to do not only from memory, but also to say, this is what I've experienced today, because all of this was new to me and a lot was happening. There's a lot I haven't documented because a lot took place. I didn't thought it was important at the time, and I did not document it. And a lot of that had to do with the amount of paper I had. I took a notebook with me and I said, here I'm using this up. And after this, I won't have any more. So I pretty much writing this down to document my experience and also for the person who would inherit me. That was my basic intent. Over the years, people caught wind that I have written the journal because it came up in conversation and I was asked, will I publish it? So I began to think more and more about this. Should I publish this? Should I publish this? And sat on it, would think about it one time, then sit on it, think about it, postpone it, et cetera, until finally I came to the time of talking with Nana Konadu about doing that and working with him. And he was truly, truly helpful in this. He took my hand, walked me through the steps, because I have to get used to this new title of author. I'm not quite used to that yet, because I've always looked at myself as a Kongfu and not an author in that sense, practical sense. But my journey for documenting this was to recount my experience and also to remember the names of those who have trained me, mainly Nana Donkor, Nana Ifa, Nana Kumsa, and writing them so that the person, as I stated, inherit me would remember their names also. But I think in publishing it, I think I did some tribute to them in that sense, that their names from now on will be remembered as long as this book is in existence, and people will read the stories of it. So my intent of, as I stated, is not really was for publication, but it became that, but was really capturing my journey and my experience and what this adventure was.
Okay, so let me go back to the screen to share the screen of the cover so that you can, because I'm probably sure people are wondering, well, who are these people that you're talking about? So that's not the one I want. Where is it? We're coming here, this one here. So would you just kindly identify everybody in the picture so that the audience in general will kind of know who you're talking about?
And this cover, I have to give a lot of credit to Nana Konadu for. He's the one that really talked about it. The original picture I had for the cover is quite different from this, but I owe him a lot of that depth. The person in front of me to my right is in front. Okay, well, that's Nanifa. That's the main person why I went to Ghana. He was the main purpose. So he's my teacher, Nanifa. Then, as you were pointing earlier too, okay, that's Nana Kofi Donko, his father, and the one who adopted me. And that's the Ochami for Subontin. They're all a Kongfu Nana Donko, Kongfu Nanifa, Kongfu, and that's the Ochami for Subontin. And sneaking behind, okay, which is not a good picture. That's Nana Kumsa, also my third teacher. So these three are my teachers there. And the gentleman you were pointing to my left, he's a Kongfu that Nana Ifa trained. So he came to my graduation. And so he was there. That was my first time meeting him. And so we were like classmates somewhat because we both had the same teacher. So those are the actors, so to speak, in terms of my Akum.
Okay. So would you kindly explain to us how did you get into the world of Akum?
That's a good question. How I got into a world, I think it's more or less how I fell into it. it was not a conscious thing, but as I look back upon it, it may have been destiny. And I kind of try to explore that in the book, in the introduction, where looking at my background growing up in Trinidad, I was exposed to that world indirectly. To no fault of my own, but just maybe out of curiosity. I was always fascinated by things, adventure and exploration. And so I would venture into things and do things where I was cautioned not to do. One, mainly, I would go pass through cemeteries to get to the school because it was the shortest distance. Rather than going around it, I would cut through the cemetery to go to school. And I was always told, don't do that, don't do that. But nonetheless, I didn't listen. You know, it's probably 5, 7, 8 years old. I wasn't listening, and I would still do it. And I encountered a spirit there. And I think that was my first encounter with the spiritual world. We call it Jumbi. Some people know it as Moko Jumbi. But the Jumbi is a spirit that when you talk to a lot of Trinidadians, it's a spirit, some view it as an evil spirit or a bad spirit that is in the cemetery. That was never my experience. To me, it was more like a guardian that was protecting the bad spirits that were buried there. And the cemetery by which I was going through was called a hangman cemetery. And as a young child, we would watch public execution because they would hang convicts in the cemetery and bury them there. So we lived on a hill and we would overview this and we looked at it and it was strange, but that's what I was exposed to. So going through there was always caution. There's a lot of spirits that you shouldn't interact with or come in contact with. And so this spirit to me served as a protector of keeping them in check. So one day going through there, I encountered the spirit which wore a dorsal. We call it kukia. The coconut palm tree kind of skirt, but you know, they call it dorsal. And he was saying, what are you doing here? And I was dumb, I couldn't speak. I tried to talk, but I couldn't say, why are you here? What are you doing here? And he had a cutlass and he was bare-chested and very intimidating, and I was scared. And I just started running out of the cemetery and he chased me out. So that was my first encounter into the spiritual world. When my mother came up here to the States, my father took me to his mother's house, and she kind of primed me, so to speak, because then I really began to get into things that I never thought of. You know, things like when we talk about Shango ruled the island of Trinidad, you know, and thunder and lightning was very prevalent there. And so my grandmother would cover mirrors. She said, why? Because it will attract the spirit of Shango, so to speak. And we covered it so it would not. And to this day, I cover mirrors, you know, in my house. And my family tell you we don't keep mirrors in our house exposed. So I grew up with that. That was one experience. And then we didn't sit in front of doors and entrances because when the church bell rang, we said Jumbi ran out through the openings, and so you didn't want them to run over you. We didn't lie on beds at 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, so when the bell rang, because spirits would just flee out of the house. And I kind of grew up with that, where I couldn't touch things, pick up coins in the road, kick bones, because my grandma was notorious saying your hand would rot off, your foot would rot off, you don't touch these things, you don't pick up because it's obeah, you know, and it will blight you. We didn't allow girls to jump over us because they would blight us, or people to step over our legs. So all of that was kind of priming me to get into the mindset of a spiritual world. Plus, once I went home for lunch to what my nenen, we call it nenen, and when I look at it as a contraction of nana, I guess, but we call it nenen, was my godmother, and she would cook food for me. And one day while eating, lightning struck. And I felt a jolt and dropped the spoon and couldn't eat. And she was curious, why are you not eating? I just said, I'm not hungry. So I had all of these experiences which stayed with me forever because I had no explanation to it. So I guess I was introduced into a spiritual world unbeknowingly there. And then things began to reconnect through my ex-wife at that time, Oshunyo, and she had her, as I say, her pulse on the spiritual world and kind of guided me into it, where I met a lot of the Akans at that time. I was also an avid martial artist. I was doing martial arts since around 14. And make a long story short, Nana Brown was called to bless or opening the school where I was an instructor at. And that was my first meeting of Nana Brown in 1982, but had no knowledge of his background or what role he would play later on in my life, or being connected till much later. So again, as I said, that was my embarkment into the spiritual world. And as time goes on, things happen as I got involved. Things began to happen and I started possessing, and then that led to training. So that's how I got involved in it. And from there, the spirit would talk to me and guide me to do things which was challenging for me while training under the shrine at that time, which I wanted to do things. And they would say, no, we don't do that. But yet I wanted to do it. And come to find out later on, that's what I'm supposed to do with the shrine, mainly pick it up and put it on my head. I always had the impulse to do that. And also I would see a hand coming out of the pot holding an egg. And if you look at my logo, you'll see on the back of it here that I have a hand holding an egg. That comes back from that vision I would see while looking into the pot. And so all of that is what kind of primed me for a comb. And it's not to say that, you know, I came by it honestly in that sense, meaning inherited. It wasn't until my father passed and I was doing the rituals for his 40th day that I got knowledge that my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a spiritual Baptist. And my father's father was one, and he introduced my grandmother into it. So when I looked, I said, hey, that's my connection. Didn't realize that. And so, but never did I have that encounter of speaking to them about it, you know, or any family member about the role that played. So that's how I got into this.
Okay. So when you first started training, you was training with Nana Kwabena Brown?
No, I asked Nana Brown at the time, but he said he couldn't do it at that particular time. And then he talked to me about the Suriname, about they had Tano there from what he said, because there was some festival or international festival, I don't know what it was, but he said they were there in DC on the mall, and that maybe I can check there. And I was thinking of going to Suriname to train. I was seriously contemplating, and it was a Yoruba practitioner. His name is Eric. I think his last name was Rucker. He would come and visit my house a lot, you know, and he said, no, don't go there. They're having a civil war right now, and you don't want to get caught up in that. So then I had to rethink it. So I spoke to Nana Brown, and he said, well, there was a video, a documentary I saw called Bono Medicine. He had the flyer. He said, maybe you can try it there. And so that's, you know, that's how I got into Takyiman. But yes, I did ask him, but at the time he was in training. So, but prior again, going backwards, I was training on the Nana Parabir initiated me into the Latte Shrine when she came to America. She stayed with me at the house I was living in our home for about 3 months. So I was with her. I was her cook, and I got to intimately and personally be around her while I was training, and got, you know, was with and she left me in charge of Nana Insir for about 2.5 years. I trained under that shrine until later on, as I mentioned, some challenges came up where I was told to go somewhere else.
Okay. So I have a question. So, all right, in chapter 1 of your book, you described being called a white man and how annoying it
Yeah,
was. So
yeah.
I mean, I still get that. I'm like, I'm not a white man, but okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, having gone through that experience and looking back at it over the years, what have you gained any insight? What are your
Well,
thoughts about that? Because
I think,
they still view us, or at least
right.
most of us, as white people, as foreigners. So I mean, they don't
So,
identify with the black.
right. It's a kind of knee-jerk reaction to them, but I think I covered that in the book where I explained where I find the fault wasn't so much with them, even though I was very upset to the point where I was challenging that term. But then I started thinking like they do. Why are you calling me this? What is it that you are saying that I'm not saying? And I began to analyze myself internally and begin to look at it from their perspective. So it's like a foreigner. It's a you're a stranger, you know, you come from abroad. And in the language they have it where they can tell foods from abroad, a brew corn, a brobe, they have that term that lets you know these are foreign or strange things from another land. So I was, I guess, viewed in that sense. And I thought to be African was based on purely skin tone, skin color, you know, but to them it was much more than that. And I began to discover it's like, I come there dressed in European clothes, which I did. I was in a three-piece suit when I went there. And yeah, quite a thing. I haven't worn one of those since then. But I was dressed that way. I came with the money. I traveled in their means of transportation. I didn't know all the culture, nuances, and all of the things and the language. So to them, you are a stranger. You're not one of us. So we call you by that name. So regardless of your skin tone, you're not really understanding of how we live. You know, the left-hand culture, you didn't understand that about eating and about these things and the protocols. So to them, I began to realize that word was not necessarily purely pejorative, you know, or negative, but basically saying, you're a stranger, you know, and you come with different concept, a different worldview, of viewing us differently. And as I began to assimilate and be more like them, they started calling me less and less that, and just, you know, Kwaku Sakyi, they started calling me that, and was more embraced. And I realized that that was their point of view, is that culture and understanding our nuances of our culture, which makes you a part of who we are. And when you don't, you know, there is a gap between us in terms of worldview and thinking. So that's how I began to reconcile that word there. But you'll find there's still strangers, or people might still get that knee-jerk reaction. You know, I don't think it's malicious on their intent and based on to insult or humiliate or anything, because they respect, you know, like there was one person who came there, they call him Bediako, you know, and I'm like, what is that name? You know, Bediako, meaning he'll come and eat and go. And they view this person like he comes here, he gets what he wants, and he leaves and forget about us. And so they are very subtle in how they give names and what it means in your relationship to them. And so as I begin to become a part of them more and more, that term disappeared more and more. So.
Okay. So I noticed like when you first got the Takyiman in the book, how you consulted like several shrines, like 3-4 different shrines. And I reflect on my time as on a Konfua or going into training, and the experience was nothing like that in terms of consulting different bosums in terms of doing that. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the closest thing that came, you know, it's like they say it takes a man and woman to produce a child, but a village to raise them. You know, a kom is, you're propped up by the community. To them, a kom is the ownership of the community, the town. And everyone contributes to that, you know, in terms of you being a komfo. And so all these different shrines work together as one family, one voice, one way of helping each other grow. So yes, they would work together collectively, and sometimes they would contribute. In fact, things were, for example, I went to a komfo, Nana Beckmoin, you know, and we say, oh, tell your father to do this for you. And I would come back and relate it to Nana Donko. Nana Donko would do it. And then I went to another priest, Nana Man, who said, oh, tell him to do this, your soul. Tell him blah, 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 that he's your father. He should give you something and look out for you. I came and told him, and he did it. So they all contributed to my growth. You know, any challenges I had, sometimes they would outsource, you would go out to them, because we're all one, we're a community, and everyone is contributing to your development. So it's not like what I refer to here, not in a way of insult, a house mentality or shrine mentality. It's a community that all these shrines are part of your environment, part of your world. And wherever you go, they're all contributing to your growth and your development as an Okomfo because you're one of that family. And plus, they all say, Nana Kofi Boyle will say that we take all priests as our brothers and sisters. We all work together collectively and we don't show bias. And so, yes, they would work and support and help me because I'm part of that world and I would service that community and town as an Okomfo, which I've had opportunities to do while I was there. You know, people came to consult. A Queen Mother had issues in another town. She came and consulted me. People's son disappeared. I hadn't seen them for years and said, hey, I'm old. I may be dying. I may not see my son. Will I see them? And they came and consulted me and I divined on them. I said, oh, don't worry, he will come. So they all contribute. So it's like Okomfo is propped up by the community and very highly respected. And they treasure that. So all Okomfo look towards helping each other as well as the people and the community. That's why when we graduate, we go and we thank people in our town because they too contributed, you know. And you will find that people who are not Okomfo, don't know anything, can tell you things. Yeah, you know, hey, you're Okomfo, you try this method, you do things, and you don't have that attitude. You're not Okomfo. Why are you telling me this? No, we don't have that attitude. They say, oh, okay, yes, and I did it. And that was part of my experience. People who are not Okomfo saying, do this ritual, and I did it. And my teacher would not fret or anything because he knows that's the way the culture is.
Right. So based on what I'm hearing you saying, the way in the Bono system, the way that the training is done for an Okomfo is more of a communal thing, as opposed to here in America, we have a house mentality. So I have my Nana, you have your Nana, and my Nana trains me, and no other body can say anything else to me. Only my Nana can say something to me.
Right.
But in that culture, well, there when you're training, it was more of a communal type setting.
Right. It's not this mentality look, you know, and it's not like seeing one view. It's seeing many things. Plus another thing to add to that, the bosom also contributes to your training. Your own bosom will contribute to it and will basically instruct your teacher what to do and what not to do. So that's why rituals of opening the mouth of the bosom is so important. So it will come and tell. They don't tell you what it is. It comes and tells you what it is. It doesn't. And for example, one case in point, while training, two points. While training, I was never told to taboo a certain food. Never mentioned. Nana Donka never mentioned it. And then one day, the bosom came and told me, don't eat this food. And I went and talked to them. I said, hey, I was told this. Oh, we forgot to mention that to you. Yes, you do. You taboo that. So again, this is what they look for. Plus, Nana Donka was teaching me divination. And then I had to try and say, oh, Nana, there's something you forgot to tell me. You didn't tell me about it. And he looked at me and said, what? And I told him what it is. He said, hey, you won't leave anything in my pocket for me to keep. So again, they look towards that to see that the bosom will train you. They will contribute to it, and everybody contributes. But bear in mind, the one thing is they don't do everything for you. Why? Because they want to make sure that your relationship with the bosom is one and you will be able to survive without them. And that's why the bosom has to contribute a great part of training. Another thing I have to emphasize that training is not of the bosom. You don't train the bosom. You're training the sum sum of the Okomfo. That's very important because the bosom will come and tell you it's taboo. It will come and tell you its name. It will come and tell you everything, what it likes and don't like, and all of its taboo. It comes with all that knowledge, but it's the Okomfo that has to be taught and given the knowledge so they can work with the bosom. So part of that is training our sum to accept and embrace the bosom because we may be afraid or maybe panicking or maybe worried, and that creates a kind of discordant relationship with the bosom, why people are screaming, falling, doing all of this stuff, because the sum sum is like a horse that is bucking, you know, get off my back, you know, blah, blah, blah. And our sum sum acts, so they calm the sum sum of the Okomfo down to accept the bosom, and so the bosom can come and perform and do its job. And so that's what a lot of the training is about, training the Okomfo sum sum, and not necessarily training the bosom how to behave. It already knows everything. It's the Okomfo.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so are there any questions in the chat? Or any questions anybody might have? Or can I continue? We do want this to be interactive, so I don't have to have all the conversation. I have a bunch of questions, but if there's something someone would like to ask, please feel free or put it in the chat. No? I guess it's just that good, huh?
You're covering all the bases.
So I had a question for you. You had mentioned that your favorite world was the dream world. Why did you say that? You're like, this was your favorite world. This is a place I guess you enjoy being.
Well, it's the world that, it's like this. We believe that the dream world is the real world, and this world is the temporal world. It's like things begin from there and manifest later on to this world. And that is our first connection with our reality. And a lot of the things, the bosom will come to me in dream. And I mean, I wrote down every single dream I had and told my teachers every dream. I don't care how personal it was, I told them. I may not have written it in the book, but I told them everything. And they would tell me and interpret my dreams. And a lot of that will show up. For example, in one point of the book, I talked about, when you're being trained by 3 people, it can be a somewhat daunting task because of time. Nanifa is the kind of a comfort that his bosom just takes up all your time. This person possesses hours to the point that people are begging his spirits to leave. They're tired. Wow. So when I go there, it's like, forget about your day. And so I'm being trained by Nana Donkon. He wants to do things for me. And, he can't because I'm spending all the time with Nanifa and I come late just to eat, sleep, and go and repeat it. So I had a dream. Nana Donko sitting on a bench, staring off in the space with medicine beside him. And I told him, he's waiting on me, but I'm not around. And I told him, he said, yes, there are times I want to do things with you, but you're not around. So then I had to talk to my teachers and said, listen, I have to spread the love around, so to speak, and spend time with Nana Ifa, spend enough time with Nana Donko so that I can learn what he wanted to. And so they all got together and talked, and each one agreed of what they will do to train me. Nana Donko will do this, Nana Ifa will do this, Nana Kumsa will do that. And so that's settled it a little more for me. So each one had a specific role, and that benefited my training. So, but a lot of this, in the dream world. I mean, everything I saw, even the death of my teachers, I saw in the dream world. I saw Nana Kumsa, and I said, and I told Nana Donko, and he just looked his head and said, he didn't say anything. He said, you've seen something. So the dream world was my world into that, and, now I'm beginning to function in both worlds. Now this world I'm seeing more and more and more, and also with the dream world, seeing things. So it's merging the two together. But yeah, the dream world was my door. That's how it all began. As you read the journey, when I first saw the shrines, my first experience was in the dream world. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question in the chat. Brother Sisa says, can you speak to the difference between the role of children of the Bosum and the senior Bosum in divination?
Okay, let me make sure. And the senior Bosum in divination?
Yeah. Brother Sisa, can you unmute yourself and probably you could
Yeah, sure. Yeah, first, greetings everyone. Thank you for writing your memoir, this book. Very informative. So I think one of the things I noticed in some of the things you wrote down was that in some of your communication with the shrines of your teachers, a lot of times it may have been what could be considered the junior bosom, the children of your teacher's senior bosom, that would come a lot more often, and you have every day conversations versus maybe on the larger festival days when you would carry the full bosom, the senior bosom, and then consult in that way.
Okay.
Just the difference in the role and things like that.
Okay, I get you, and I'll add another dimension to it to bring it into our reality. Yes, in Takyiman we have 2 types of a komfo. a bosomfo, which is male. They're the ones that take the yawa or the brass band, puts it on the head to carry the bosom, and is passed down through the matrilineal group, of course. And then you have the female, which is called a komfo. The big significance of it is they both share the same bosom. The difference is that the male normally, majority of the time, would only possess the bosom if you put the pan on the head. And the female, on the other hand, can possess the bosom any place, anytime, anywhere. And that's basically the only difference, but they function the same in terms of knowledge that are coming from them. So the senior basically is viewed as male, and that's a term that is used there because they are the main one. Because again, the junior one, which is the female, works with Asuya, and Asuya is the divination or the divinary part of the shrine, or the wife of the shrine, or the mouth of the bosom. And she would work through that, but the rituals and sacrifices are not done on Asuya because Asuya taboos blood. So we don't put blood inside Asuya. And so it taboos it, but you would put it on the brass pan, or what we call didipono, the eating table. We would put it on that. And so that basically is done by the male. Again, they're family members. They could be brother, sister, or the uncle and niece, so to speak, but there's all through the matrilineal group. So that's one way the role that become. So another aspect of which I thought maybe you were first talking about when you talk about the junior, the lesser, that at the shrine, there's a principle that is always in use to attract children or people in the future there, meaning when we do sacrifices at the shrine, we do it at the clubs, mainly for these type of shrine. Not all shrines work that way, but the ones I was trained on, we sacrifice at the clubs. And at the clubs, children, male or female, the female far as premenstrual, can go up and touch or take things from the club, and young boys can do the same. They don't even have to ask permission. They can just walk up while the adults are there and take any food back and cook it. They can do that freely. And that is believed that way it's saying to them, here, the shrine is providing food for you. It's benefiting you. And that way it attracts children. And as they grow up to become adults, they will become closer to the shrine because it provided for them. The difference is when the female gets menses, she no longer can do that. But normally they can do that. So that's one way they attract children to them and keep the tradition going on, because as a child, I went to the shrine and I took food and my mother cooked it and I ate and provided for me. As an adult, it will do the same for me as well. So that is it. But back to the point of the senior and junior, if I understand you clearly, it all has to do with whether you're a bosomfo, you carry the pan, or the atano bosom or tano, or the female who do not carry the pan is considered junior to that. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I think it was either chapter 2 of your book, you described the sumans that you had. I counted a total of 19. Did you wear all of those? Did you wear all of those at one time, or
okay,
when did you use them? Because I'm like, that's a lot.
Well, we have two types. Let's really clarify the category, because most people are familiar with suman. We have like Tigare, Mosi, and those are called suman also. But the one that a Komfo wear, yes, you wear all of them only on your ade. They like I'm wearing one now. This is a suman, and I have a bunch of them that I would wear mostly on ade. They serve a couple of functions.
All right, so you would wear all of them on Ade, or?
Yeah, but while training, I wore them every day.
Oh, where you put 19 months? Where?
Well, you wear some on your wrists, most of them on the wrists, on your ankles, and around your knees. Wow. So we wore them, and they all serve a purpose. That's one form of suman, or yeah, we call them suman, but these don't taboo water. You can bathe with them, and they are not they don't taboo that. The other ones, you don't do that with them, like Tigare, Mosi, Tinka, or Aninam, or Bokruma, any of these sumas you don't do that with them. But the ones that were. So those summons serves many purposes. Some have songs, some do not. And what is the purpose they serve? They tell a story and they remind the Komfo about his character and his behavior and also about their Kom world. And so they, when you wear them, it's always reminding you of your character and how you should behave. Because as I mentioned, part of training a Komfo is training the Sum Sum of the person, the character. So these summons serve, say, Akofu, Akromachami da Akofu, like the white eagle come and have catch me. It's saying that Komfo shouldn't fight each other. So it's saying you as a Komfo, you shouldn't argue or get into dispute with other Komfo. So we wear that. And then one called Totonto. Totonto has no song. Totonto means don't be extravagant. Don't be to the point where you do something and have regrets. So it reminds you about that. Then you have a Jabuna. Jabuna ye, Jabuna mantimon, Koko, Jabuna, Jabuna mantimon, Jabuna. That's a song goes with it. So Jabuna is saying that if I see something, it won't disturb my spirit. If I see spirit or have encounter with them, I shouldn't get afraid. So it props and fix your cry, your sum sum to be strong. And then after we have Akomre, which is senior. This one is the senior to all of them. And Akomre Aniwa, Ohene Aniwa, they're the eyes of the chief, because the chief is the political person. Your Komfo is his spiritual eyes. So he travels with your Komfo. So your Komfo will say, you need to do these rituals for the ancestor. You need to do this ritual for this. You need to do this to protect the state, et cetera, et cetera. And the Komfo does that. So this is, and also it says it fights Akomres as like fire, that anything bad comes to you, it will burn it up. So that's why it's red. And so sometimes you shake somebody's hand and you don't know what their intent is, whether it may be to spoil you or they just have bad energy. Akomre will eat it up. Sometimes you go to the store, you buy food, you don't know if women are their cycle, you don't know who touches it, you touch it, and you don't want to take on the table. Akomre will dissolve it or stop it. So Akomre serves that. And then you have Auroko. Auroko is a sooner. Janya Auroko, Auroko, Janya, Rohu Bibi, Wu Bibi Nyangpa, Janya Auroko. So Auroko is like saying, well, who Bibi, you see something that can bring death to you. And if you see something, it can bring life to you. So Auroko is to warn you that if you're going somewhere, if you see something, you have to ask the question, will this bring me life or death? And it has to do with the chime on it. When you wear Auroko, it chimes, ding, ching. When it stops, it is saying, Auroko sees something that may bring you problems, so don't go any further. So the Komfo wears it. And plus, during my training experience, when people are misbehaving or doing things they shouldn't be doing, when they hear the Komfo, they are proper. They behave properly. Nana, how are you? They're respectful. And then we're comfortable, then they go back to their mischievous ways. So so all of the summon also gauges you in the community and prepares people how to relate to you and also of your character as well. So these summons are very important.
Okay. Does anybody have a question they like to ask? I can continue. One of the things that I thought was very important in the book as I was reading, how you described the importance of a family in a Kom. So
Yes.
I thought that was very, very powerful. So here in America, as you know, a Kom or the culture or dealing with the shrines really become personal shrines. I'm in a Komfo and I have a shrine, but that's it. No one else in my family is involved. No one else to that level. But you describe it in a way that really, really brings home the importance of the link of the family. So could you expound on that, please?
Sure. I mean, I discovered that there, and that's what my fault when I went there by myself. I went solo because when I was initiated here, my family didn't know anything about it. When I was initiated by Nana Paradigm, it was just me, her, Nana Insia, that's it. You know, I don't know if anybody else was there. If they were, very limited. It was almost secretive. But, you know, I didn't give much thought to it because it was never a topic. But when I went to Ghana, I went there alone and they're like, you're here by yourself to train. It doesn't work that way because I didn't bring Ochami with me. My mother wasn't there with me, no one representative. And so it took them a little while. And I think I explored that in the book where they said, hey, we can't send him back because he may not come back again. So what are we going to do? And so they said, we have to adopt him as our son. And so that's what Nana Donko did. He adopted me, gave me his name, and he treated me literally as his son. He said, you are my son now. And I'll tell a story later on about that. Once they did that, then they said, you need a Ochami. I said, Ochami. I said, we can't train you without Ochami. You train and your Ochami trains with you. So I said, okay, so Kofi Sapon, who's Nana Kumwankuma, is the chief now, he was my Ochami. So he was Nana Ifa's, as I mentioned, Nana Ifa's Ochami, his brother. And he also became my brother and my Ochami. And so I had to go and beg a Sutipa, Nana Ifa's Bosom, that I can take his secretary as my Ochami. So I went to Asu and consulted him. And Asu asked, you want to take my secretary to serve as your Ochami? And then Asu gave me permission. So then he became my Ochami. So Nana Donko adopted me, said, you're my son. These are your brothers. These are your siblings. Nana Ifa is my teacher and my brother. You know, Kofi's your Ochami and everything. And so I met them. And then his wife became my mother. And she took care of me and did everything. And Nana Kumsa, my aunt and everything. So once that was established, then they were saying, now we can train you. And so that is what was my experience in terms of they would not move forward one bit until that was taken care of. So I was in limbo land, so to speak. And once they adopted me, so henceforth I could have the name Sakyi because Nana Donko, which is his kind of appellation to him, his name is Kofi Sakyi. So he's called Kofi Donko because he was born after his mother lost a child, and Donko means literally a term they call slave, but it's meaning that whenever you hear that name Donko, that means the child before this one passed. And so they tie them, so they're entrapped by the bosom, and they tie a rope around their leg and they drag them and tie them to the bosom so that they would not leave. So the bosom will use them as their owner, you know, and so that's what Donko means. So that's already what his history was. And so, yeah, that was the road. They will not train you. And another thing you mentioned about the bosom is not, the Komfo is not the owner of the bosom. You are the servant or the person that is performing a task. Sometimes it's been my experience where some people resign from being a Komfo because of one reason or another, that sometimes they work very hard and they're not being given the credit or praise by the family, and the family, some may not be sharing the wealth that the bosom is bringing with the Komfo, saying, here, I'm suffering, I'm doing all this, and I'm not benefiting, so I'll resign. And he resigned. So then they find another Komfo to suit them. Or sometime maybe they committed offense, the bosom say, we'll destool you. And they destool you, then the family will choose another. So the family, the Obusia, is the one who chooses and make the important role of a Kom, not their Komfo. You can possess, but you don't make it's the family will make the decision whether you train or not. So possession is not the sole priority for being a Komfo. It's the decision of the Busia Panyin and them to decide, okay, you're a candidate, we will allow you to be. If not, they will vie and say who will have the best one and blah, blah. And one thing to remember, the bosom will never refuse. The bosom will say, I love this one, and I'll take this one. No, this one. The bosom will never do that. It will always go with the consensus of the family. So it's almost like a chieftaincy. The queen mother has a candidate, other have a candidate, and you put it which one will be left standing to do the job. And it's the same thing. There are instances where they will leave it to the bosom to make that choice. Yes, where the bosom will claim it among the candidates, but then also there are parts where the family can say, this is my candidate, we want you to accept it. And the bosom will not refuse it. So again, that's it. And you are just performing a job, a task, like a hired hand, so to speak, as a Komfo. And if you're not doing a good job, they say, sorry, we're going to destool you and put another person in your place. And that comes with some trepidation a lot of times. If you're destooled or you commit offense, sometimes within a year that person passes. You know, they don't stay around long because there can only be one. You can't have competition with the bosom. No two people can possess the same bosom because no two form of matter can occupy the same space. You know.
So one of the things that I found interesting in the book was the order that the shrines maintain and the threat of death all over the place.
Yes.
It's like, yo, if you don't do
Yeah.
right, I will take you out of here. And here in America with the comb, we don't get that type of feeling. It's like almost a wild, wild west. You could pretty much do whatever you want and
Well,
have that threat of death. But in there, from reading your memoir, that seemed to be talk about the Nana, who did an offense to the shrine when they stuck the sword in them, and they said, "Oh, there's nothing we can do. The shrine has already did it. It started to rot, or they had 3 days to get to cure it. If it wasn't done within that 3 days, it's a done deal."
I think that is something that has to really be cleared up. And I had some issues with even writing it, but I was about documenting everything because people can misunderstand what that is going on. It's like the bosom is a power. The bosom has to prove it's a power. Otherwise, it's not a bosom. It's the nature of a bosom. So its power is active. It's like fire has to prove to you it's fire. I don't care what you do. If you have a blazing fire, it's going to prove I will burn you. It's no offense, but that's my nature, to burn. And if you put your hand on it, you'll do it. But if you work with it, you can use it beneficially to cook and do wonderful things, to heat your body, to warm and all of that. It can work. So the bosom is that. The reason why the bosom killed people because they were foolish. They were foolish. And I think I kind of explained why this happened is because they challenged the bosom's authority, that it's like, it's not going to happen, and even me, I talked about how my bosom straddled me in the book. I talked about that because I challenged, I must admit I did, and it's like, it has to say, a power that somebody says. So that happened. So it was all justified in many sense because a lot of times you call the power of a bosom, and the key to it, don't challenge it. If somebody say, here's the line in the sand, don't step over, and you step over, you're challenging it. Then it has to prove to you it is something. So we have a saying, "Wobro jatati awoti power." When you strike the head of a lion, your head hurts. Because the lion is going to do something if you challenge it. It's its nature. It's nothing personal, but it's the nature of it. So the bosom are like that. Other than that, there's nothing to worry about if you do and obey and follow the rules of the bosom. But these people who did challenge it, and they knew better. So, and the bosom had to show I'm real, I'm effective, I work, and I can help you, and I can do that. And they do have a say in one's existence sometimes. I must admit they do.
And now we have a question by Sister Afua. She said, "Can you speak on the opening of the mouth of the abosun? Is that an occurrence that is required?"
Yes. And it's only required, it determines the nature of your bosom. For suman, we don't do that. Anybody can have suman. They don't care. Anybody can collect it. They're not really passed. You can keep it and pass it on to family, but they don't function like bosom. So we make a clear distinction in the categories of bosom. So we have Tano bosom, we have Atano bosom, we have bosom rafo, and Ntwa bosom. And they all have a function, a role they play. And then apart from that, you have Sumain, which countless ones, and they come from mostly the north, and they're not part of the culture per se. There's something that came into the mix of things. They're much later, they're downstream, so to speak. So the bosom opening the mouth is a ritual that when the bosom comes, it's on a person, and you have to open that doorway for it to speak through you. Again, that requires the ritual where the mouth is open, and then the bosom will talk. And if it doesn't talk, then it will not perform. For example, there's one person I will vaguely speak about who was trained by Nana Donko, and the family said, we don't need you to open the mouth of the bosom. I have someone who will do it. So will you do everything else to train him, blah, 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 blah. And he did. Then after this person was going to open the mouth, passed. So now I don't know if they felt shame in coming back. So they never came to Nana Donko to ask them to reopen the mouth. I don't know why, but anyway, the bosom don't talk. So that's happened because you didn't open the mouth. So that is a necessary ritual for bosom. Clearly make a distinction of bosom. That's what rituals. For suman, you don't do that. To my knowledge, we don't open the mouth of sumans. So yes, you have to open the mouth of the bosom.
Okay, Nana, Brother Brown, you have your hand raised. How may we help you?
Appreciate it. If this has been asked already, my apologies. I came on late, but no, good to see you. Wonderful
Hey,
book.
always.
Yes. I'm enjoying it. I'm a little bit more than halfway through.
Okay.
So the question is, it seems like I'm picking up. It seems like the Basum have many roles, but it seems like I'm picking up, like when the possession happens at times, it seems like there is some assistance from the Basum in mediating family relationships or difficulties,
Yes.
and maybe helping to bring back some kind of harmony or balance. Is that so? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Again, it speaks to what role the bosom serves. And this is something that was brought out to me while training. Everything that a Kung Fu needs to function with is done during the training process. It's not after. It's not like after we'll give you this and that. No, everything is done during the training. And the nature of the bosom, again, functions that way. So the role of the bosom, what does it serve? It comes to a family. Why does it come to a family? Because, you have to have a need. A lot of times, the cry in the darkness gives rise to a voice, someone answering it. And a lot of times, people have a need, and sometimes the bosom is attracted to you for that reason, to come and help you. There are times when you just happen to be at the right place, right spot, and you encounter it and the bosom possesses on you. But its role is to help bring security to us, help us in our life or daily lives, and to protect and help us to navigate our environment. So the role of the bosom is to help us in our whatever environment is. I come here, I'm in Miami, it's a different environment. The role of my bosom is to navigate and help me how to function in this world. Where to go, where not to go, what plants to use, what not to use, and function. And also it helps keep harmony in the family, because my wife can tell you if there's problems going on, if I have issues or something that is worrying me and I go and put the pan on my head, the bosom will not come. Will not come. It will not come because, again, the bosom uses the sunsum of the priest or komfo. And whatever is in your mind will affect the bosom. So if there's problem in the family, the bosom will give advice, not coming necessarily to give advice, but you will say, why didn't the bosom came? Then someone else will say, there's issue going on that needs to be solved. And so then the people will solve the family problems. Then when that is done, you carry the bosom, it comes okay. Sometimes if there's a concern that doesn't prevent the bosom from coming, it will come and then they can consult it and bring the case to the bosom to solve. But normally it allows the elders to solve it themselves, because the bosom functions best with spiritual matters and things that are blocking us and preventing us from prospering or navigating our world, et cetera, et cetera. But there are times it will help solve domestic issues. But a lot of time, that's what the Abusia will do themselves. It's only when it cannot, then we go to the bosom to help solve it, but we don't rely primarily on them for that purpose. We go to the elders and discuss these issues and talk about ourselves and try to solve that. but they can help maintain harmony in families. Sometimes in the family, their child passes or something happens and they don't have much issues coming forth. The bosom can help them to get issues. Case in point is that the family went to a superintendent and asked him for childbirth because they were losing a lot of children. So these are the things, and that's something also to bear in mind when you open the box of the bosom and they'll ask the bosom for what can it do for the family, and the elder will say, these are our dilemmas. This is our problem we have as a family. We can't do this. We seem to not do well with this. It's always bringing chaos and confusion to us, blah, 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 blah. And they put it forth to the bosom to sit on it and solve it. So the bosom will do that. So in this case, they were not having children living long, and they went and they asked the bosom, help our children to live long. So then years later, they have all these children and they need money. Then they say, now we need money. The bosom, you didn't ask me for that at the beginning. So now you want this to prosper. So that becomes very important, that whatever it is, once you have this new bosom in the family, the elders will come when the priest, the Konfo, carries the bosom and said, okay, now that you're here, you're part of our bloodline and you will be with us for eternity. These are the things that are concerning us as a family. Maybe we have diseases that are really taking us. Maybe we cannot prosper financially. Maybe our relationships, our marriages don't work. Maybe we don't have these things. And they will pose them to the bosom and ask him to solve it, and the bosom will solve that. So in that way, it helps maintain the integrity of the family unit and security as well. So that it will do that. But it has many other tasks as well that can extend beyond the immediate family as well, but also the community. And it will serve a role in safeguarding the community as well. So it can overlap, but it will not do or compete with what is called a state bosom. That it cannot do. But we have a state bosom, which is for the bigger state, and that's the role of it. But then for the family and community, we have bosom that can manage that.
So Nana Sakyi, Nana Kofi Ofori had a question. Are you still on? You didn't type it, so
Me?
yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Greetings, Nana Setchi. How are you?
Greetings, welcome. How are you?
Okay, I'm fine. You at one point were talking about the importance of establishing a family. That was an important phase at the very beginning. I have ordered the book. I haven't gotten it yet, but could you share with everybody, the story you told me about the need to observe you and kind of get a handle on your character?
Yes.
That was part of your part of the training, and how the tying the chicken to your leg was part of that.
Okay, that's a loaded question there, but I'll do my best. I want to point out that Nana Ofori is a person that I have to give a good shout out to. That when I first came to Miami, he's the one that helped me move here. I mean, I really owe him a great gratitude for that.
It's a pleasure.
He really came down. He drove all the way from DC to Miami. He was right there. So I have to thank him for that. And also,
most welcome. Most welcome.
Helped me set up my compana de power. Before then, it was something he laid the corporate laws and everything rules. I owe him. He's the person that do that. So so to your question again. Refresh me again. I got sidetracked. I just so much.
Oh yeah, they were trying to discern your character by tying the chicken to your leg.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a loaded question in the sense that, again, not everything I divulged in the book. The reason why that was done, it was twofold. Yeah, the character is a very important issue, and that's why we talk about training the Kung Fu is training the character as well. And later on, you get rewarded based on that. But that particular time about the chicken is when I went to Nana Bitcoin, that I was having challenges possessing the bosom because, as I mentioned before, 2.5 years I was training under another shrine, and I don't want to get too involved in all of that issue and try to avoid it as much as possible. But the bosom wasn't coming because I was being prevented from succeeding. And so the Bosom Boyao said, you know, do this ritual that I had to do it for X amount of days and sleep with the chicken. So whatever it is will go to the bird, you know, and that is something interesting. When they get what is called gun medicine, they use a bird the similar way. So they tied it to me and I had to sleep with this bird to whatever it is to take it off of me, and it will transfer into the animal. And then I set it free. So I would literally tie this to my leg, bathe with it, and sleep with it for X amount of nights. And then later on had to go to the junction in Quanta, and release the bird, you know, to go. And then after that, my bosom came. So why was that? Because a couple of factors. One, that Akom is about a Dru medicine, and each shrine has its own particular medicine, and sometimes it may not be compatible with others. And so, of course, I was trained on the latte, you know, they cut your arm and they put medicine in it, and they use that. So that was with me. And it prevented my bosom from coming, because Nalifa would say, we must condemn the old medicine in you so that the bosom will come. And so the bosom wasn't coming for quite a while. It was not possessing on me because the medicine was not compatible with it. And so as a result, doing those rituals was to condemn it and do that, you know, because medicine affects your sun as well, and your character, you know, it merges with it. Because when we bathe medicine, we use only plant and water, no soap, no nothing for 3 years or however long you're training. That's the only water that touches, all river water from sacred water. You bathe with plants, roots, bark, leaves for every day, 3 times a day, sometimes more, for 3 years. That's the only medicine. And so what it is to condemn anything that is previously there, so that it goes into the skin, into the muscles, into the blood, into the bone. And once it gets into the bone, you're free. So that's why a lot of times you see a comfort in Takyiman or that area, don't wear a lot of talisman or sebe or suman, because it's in their body. They don't have to wear it outside to prop it up. So again, a lot of that has to do with one's character, because your character is what shapes and molds the medicine that you're bathing with. It will amplify it in one way or another. So the training, as I mentioned, is about shaping your character and keeping it proper, and being respectful to your elders. And again, we wear these sumans on our arms, as I mentioned earlier, to help shape and mold the character of their comfort to behave, so that the bosom can come to them freer and uninhibited. Because we have a saying, nyakum, nyakum, not all akom is akom. And we say that if the akomfu is a thief, the bosom is a thief. If the akomfu is a liar, the bosom is a liar. And they literally mean that, because I've seen akomfu do things that is questionable, but when you look at the character of the person, you say, oh, that's how they are. You know, sensei, nipatini, that's how people are, human beings are. So the character is essential to doing good akom, or what we call tete akom.
Nana, Nana, this is Sakyi again. I'm wondering if I can have your permission to share a testimony that involves some of your work. I think it might be
Sure, why not?
edifying.
Thank you. Why not?
So I realized I asked you the question about just a moment ago about assisting with family and so forth, and then I realized, oh, I have my own experience.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I just want to share with folks. I'm usually very, very private and quiet person, but I think this might, you know, just give validation to the work of Akom and the Bosum and Nana Sakyi. So briefly, my wife at the time and I, we were trying very hard to, neither of us had children, to have a child, and we had a very difficult time. The first time she got pregnant, I think it got to 16 weeks. We were very excited and so forth, and it ended in a miscarriage. And Of course, we were very downtrodden, but we were very still very hopeful. We tried again the second time, and we went a little bit longer, I think, but we had a stillbirth. Tried a third time, and then a fourth time, the same things happened. Each time we were working, of course, with the medical professionals. They said she had an incompetent cervix, was the word, and they would stitch her up every time. She'd be on full bed rest and all of that. And they did all of their best things that they knew to do. You know, after the fourth time, you could imagine it was a track record. So they were really, you know, doing their fullest. And by that time, we both had been like, you know, these people don't know what they're doing. They can't help us. And so took us to the fourth time, and then we went, you know, to Nana. We said, Nana, this is what's happening. Please, what can you do? And we went, you know, we went to see Nana, and he did work for us, very powerful work. And we had our son on the fifth try, Tano Anoche.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And now he is
Oh.
next year he will be going to the 12th grade and be
Wow.
graduating very soon, you know. So you know, Tano is Tano, but I also found out, I think in Kiswahili, Tano also means the fifth.
Really?
That means the number 5. Number 5, yeah. So
Wow.
yes, but the work is strong, and you know, we are forever grateful.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Thank you, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, yeah. And that's why we give him the name, so that it will be always attached to his life and experience, Tano.
Correct. His name is Tano Anoche Donko Brown.
Right,
Like
Donko.
you said.
Yeah. So we tied him, yeah. He had, I think I gave him an anklet to wear.
Oh yes.
Shackles, like a shackle.
Yes, exactly.
And that way we shackle him to the shrine so that his soul would not leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't touch his hair till he was 7.
That's right. Didn't cut it at all. I mean, he was the property of the shrine. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yes. Powerful.
Bring back a lot of memories. Wow. That was, 12 years ago? 13? Yeah.
What? No, he's 17 now, so.
Oh, I thought you said, that's
no, next year he's in 11th. He's going to 12th next year.
Oh,
so,
you're talking about the grade. He's that old?
Yeah.
Wow. Time flies by.
Yeah, but he's 17. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Time speeds up as we get older, at least for me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Adjuatano, you said there was a question again. I don't see the question on the follow.
Yes. Sure. But first, greetings, Nana Sakyi.
Greetings. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes. There was a follow-up question from Afua Chedawa. She had asked about the opening of the mouth, and her follow-up question is that Bono or all Acombe area or regions?
That's a good question. I can't say what other people are doing, but I know it's definitely part of what we do. And I know one thing, that a lot of people from different places come there to train in the Bono area. Mostly a lot of people from Ashanti, other places, they all come there to train. Well, you know, they train good priests there, you know, they really do. And that is definitely part of our rituals. So I haven't explored much shrines outside of the Bono area to say what they do. I think maybe people in your audience would know better than I, since others may have been to the Ashanti area and been to the Latte area and been to other places, and they could probably tell me if that's a ritual that they do or familiar with there, because maybe it was done to them. But definitely if you're in the Bono area, it's part of what your training is about.
Well, in terms of Latte area, I've never heard of something like that happening since the training came out of that system. And most of the American Akonfo come out of that system of training. And I've never heard of the opening of the mouth until talking to you. So there are other Akonfos that were trained in that system as well. They can verify it or deny, like, no, that's not true. It does happen, but I've never heard of that. And then Brother Sisa, he comes out of the Shanti area,
Okay.
so he can probably speak to
Right.
whether or not they actually perform that ritual in that area or where he comes.
I know a lot of them come to Takyiman to train, so maybe they might have it, but he can speak on it.
Cesar, you there? Did they lose you? Okay.
I would tell, this is Fua Monashari Nana. Saisa and I were trained in the same place,
Okay,
and I didn't experience it, but he did additional training after we were finished, or maybe even before. So he may have something that he can share that I wasn't exposed to.
okay,
So, yeah. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? I got a few more questions I can ask. I can keep going. It's 8:30. Do y'all want me to stop? I mean,
There is another question.
there is
in
another one? Okay.
chat. Yes, Ifua
Riley.
asked, what is the difference between Sumine and Ajunya?
Jumna,
Yes.
Junya.
Yeah, she wasn't sure about the spelling. So,
You can unmute
I
herself.
think was that the spirit that that visited you as a child? And
oh, the Jambi,
so I'm not sure if that's what she's referencing. But
okay. Yeah, it's spelled with a J, yeah, well, that is interesting. If,
It's Omadun here, Omadun Ansa. And I was just curious because it looks like a suman, but it has a metal ring in it and a chain connected to it, and it's called an ajunya. So I was wondering if there's a difference between that and a suman.
well, I can't say offhand because I'm not familiar with it, but most likely it sounds like with chains, you know, sumans are attached that way to hang on the wall. Yeah, so.
Yes, I think so.
Right, because
yeah,
because most sumans are like that. They have the chain, and I have one, you hang it on the wall. And but again, I can't say with authority because I'm not sure if that's the name you're saying. Is that the name or is that the nature of it?
That's what I was told that it was. It's called an ajunya.
Okay.
Where does it come from?
It's Ga.
Okay. So that's their language. It might be, yeah, it could possibly be a Sumer. But again, most Busums shrines are a little different, except for a Busum Raffle, their shrine is a little different. But Sumans are more popular in terms than Busum, yeah, in some areas. But I can't say with authority, and I wouldn't want to really begin to say the wrong thing. So I can't really speak on it.
Okay, Madasi.
You know.
So Nana, you mentioned Nana Parabia and Nana Yao Dini Zulu in your book.
Yes.
What do you feel? How do you feel? What they got right about Akom?
Well, they brought it here to us. I believe that they got right, you know, and I have to be careful with the word because then on the flip side, does mean they got something wrong, but I don't want to imply that. But the thing is that's why, to me, I want to give a lot of credit to those who influenced me, but things didn't work all right. That's why I also give credit to Nana Insir. Even though we had some things, I still give credit, and we give credit to Nana Denizulu because he brought Akom to America. So I went and visited him and spent time. So in essence, we owe a great debt of gratitude to Nana Denizulu because he opened that door. And also they owe a debt to Nana Parabia because through his connection to her and to the West. So that's what they've done. And so they've given the world out here in America, us, that perspective. And now that people are branching out and seeing other things, I think it all contributes to the world of Akom, because here I'm given a different perspective based on my training. So I think we're all contributing to it and helping it evolve better. And who knows what Nana Denny Zulu would have done with Akom if he was still around today, take it to another level. You know, unfortunately, he left us very soon. And so, but we owe a lot to him. And I recall seeing him a lot, and when he would come to DC and doing the Akom. So we knew each other physically, but not intimately until I went and visit him and pay respect. But he did get that right in terms of bringing Akom to America. And he was the vehicle by which the ancestors of the Bosom used to do that. So we have to be grateful for him and for Nana Paradia for that. Even though, yes, there's some issues between Nana Paradia and myself, but that's personal. But it has nothing to do with what she has done and contributed to the world of Akom. So I can't say that anything other than that, because that's as far as my interaction with them can go.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
In the last few chapters of the book, you talk about your trips to Ghana and the funerals and stuff. Are there any stories that stick out in your mind that like really resonate with you during that time?
Well, a lot that stick out is also the role of how you really can't fool or comfort. And this is something I mentioned earlier. When Nana Donko was leaving, you know, meaning he was at the time getting ready to depart, he took me to Bonsu, a town, to see this old man, someone his senior. And because he wanted to leave me in his hands, you know, so to speak. His name was Kwam Fro. And Fro means cripple, you know, he was called cripple, you know, but he wasn't that way when I met him. I guess as a child, maybe he was born like that. But he became healthy. So he went and took me to this old priest who is much older than him. And he said, I'm bringing my son here for you to help. And the man looked at me, he looked at Nana Donko, and he has, you know, a kahire is the pad. You know, when you carry a bosom, he's also an entwa komfo, bosomfo. So he has a pad that he puts on a head that he puts a shrine on. So he would divine looking at his kahire, his pad. And that is something about divination. I find there are different ways you can divine. There are many ways. So he would look at his kahire and looked at Nana Donko, look at me, look at his pad, and look at me and said, it's not really your true son, is it? And I said, yeah, it's my son. He said, where's his mother? He said, oh, she went to Trinidad, et cetera, telling this story. And finally, the man said, no, that is not really truly your son, giving birth to him, even though Nana Donko tried to give him that story. But the part of it is that it got me the opportunity to see this man can see. And in seeing, he can help me. And he was very instrumental in helping me. And after Nana Donko passed, I would visit him and spend time with him and, you know, interact with him. And he gave me some important summons that helped me tremendously. And he knew a lot about medicine, and I learned a lot. And I wanted to get more from him, but, you know, he eventually passed, you know, but he was very much helpful, you know. So that was one interesting story. I want to tell another is like how I got a summon called Banga from Nana Akumsa. She said, I've been watching your character for many years and studying you well. And she said to me, I want to give you something. She said, in all of Ghana, you will be the third person to have it. She said, no one else has this. You're number 3. And she said, I'm giving you something very important. And she gave me a laundry list, which was very challenging to fix, to find. I mean, one of the most elaborate. There's 2 I have, that's by far one of them. And she gave me Banga. And that to me was something that was, you know, I can't explain it in enough words, because she said, I have it, Nana have it, and now you have it. It's 3 people. And so that to me was a great tribute and honor. And she said, it's all based on your character, because I wouldn't give it to you if your character was not suited. So I really, truly owe the greatest debt to my teachers. I mean, I can't say it enough, and writing this book is part of that. They've done so much for me in helping me to see the world of Akom and also the nature of Akom. You hear so many fantastic tales about Akom that we are Akomfo, we don't die, our bodies would disappear. There's stories they're telling, these old stories, we disappeared and there were no corpse, and it led to problem. And people began to say, hey, you can't have this. There's no more corpse. People are asking questions. So they begged the bosom to let the corpse remain. This is stories I'm hearing. And so that's what happens, and they would do rituals. And also another fantastic story, they wanted to go to Jama. And you see this in songs, Woko Takyiman by Woko Jama. Jama is the ancient Bono town where the chief of Dinkra resided, and the Bono people resided during the Ashanti Wars. And so a lot of them have very strong ties and connection there. So they wanted to take me to Jama. They said, hey, Anna, we got to take you to Jama. They said, there's something we want you to see. I said, what? They said, oh, when Akomfo died, we want to show you what the rituals they do. They say they take the body and sit it in a chair. Then they take the Yao, try and put it on the head and invoke the bosom. I said, what? Yeah, and the bosom will come on the corpse and act and move. It can't speak. It can't do anything. It just motions and then leaves, and then they remove it, and then they bury it. I said, what? He said, yeah, we have to go. So I wanted to go there, but things happened, never got the opportunity to go there, but I did get to go to some fantastic towns. But who knows, maybe in the future I might go there to the Ivory Coast, but they have a lot of story, and that also where Bonga comes from, because the family has connection there. Nana Donko has children there, and so there's a strong tie with the Bono people there, and that's where Nana Ifo went to train, my teacher. He went to there, and that's where Nana Bequin went to train, and that's where Bruma priest went to train. So there's a lot of stories of a lot of Akomfo in that area going to Jama or Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire, whatever name you want to call it, but we call it Jama, to train there. So there, you have many stories, and I can go on all night about how Akom came to the family and how this happened, how medicine. So they have tons of stories of things that they would tell me during my training, you know, and you know, parables. They had proverbs, parables, and they would say, which came first? I did not listen or accident. And they will test your intellect to say what you answer with. And they'll give you these riddles and all of this to test your knowledge and doing a comb. And Nana Donko did all of those things while I was training, you know, and so did Nana Ifa. So they kept you on your toes, you know, and again, there was so much going on. I didn't document a lot, but I kept a lot here, you know, in terms of these stories. So yeah, there's plenty out there.
I have a question. Is in terms of a comb here in America, what do you think? How can the shrines function here in America as they do in Takyiman, or what can be done to make them function as they do in Takyiman?
Yeah, that's a very important question, you know, and to me, it's like, it's the same. You can take the lion out of the jungle, but not the jungle out of the lion. It's the same thing with the bosom. You can take it out of Ghana, but you can't take Ghana out of it. So wherever you come, it will carry it with it. And they tell you this, I mean, verbatim, they would say, wherever you put a Bono person, it will function as a Bono person. And I'm saying that wherever you take the bosom, it will function in that nature. Because all you have to do is allow it. It will help you navigate your environment. The bosom comes from where? It comes from this town in Ghana, wherever it is. You bring it to a new town. What will it do? It will help you to survive and navigate and function in your environment. Just like you have many people, whether they're Chinese or this, they come and they bring their culture with them. It's like you believe you're in that town. I would always say to people, whenever you go to my shrine, you are on the soil of Takyiman. I say that. This is an embassy. This is, once you go to the embassy, you're in you are on the soil of that town. And I would say this, you come to my shrine room, you're not in America. I'm sorry, you're in a place, this is the embassy, you are in Takyiman. And so I carry that belief truly with me and everything. So the shrine will come and help you navigate, and they tell you rituals, what to do to marry your shrine to the land by performing certain rituals, going to certain ritual lakes, and merging or marrying your bosom to it, so it will begin to help you navigate your environment. And so you have all these elaborate rituals which is done, and then doing festivals, you can take it to that place and do it, but it's finding those rivers, those sacred uncontaminated places to do. The shrine will come and help you navigate and function in this environment and still be a part of it because it's connected to where it is, and it can never not be that. You know, just like I believe I came from the Bono area to Trinidad, from Trinidad I come to America, and now being taken back. No matter what, I was still always connected with it from birth. So the bosoms are that way. So we have to, first of all, respect that and understand that it is something of Ghana. So how do we do that? We have to go and find out and learn all the keys that will help the bosom function properly and solving the riddles and problems that we are encountering in this environment. And if you don't do that, then the bosom cannot function properly. It's like tuning that radar or that tower. You have to tune into the right to get the signal. And so when you bring the bosom here, you have to tune it in so it can function there as it would here. And it is able to do it if in your mind you allow it to do. But if you say no, you know, and to do all respect, you know, but some believe this is America, not that. I don't view it that way. You go to the American embassy in any country, you are in America. People can seek refuge there. You're not on that soil of that land. You are in that territory, and that's a reality. And the bosom, I believe, is the same concept. So if we treat it that way and say, you are here now in this place, and we fashion this for you, help us navigate our environment, then you find out what necessary rituals the bosom will tell you what to do to make it function in this environment properly, so that you can have all of the same things that you would in Ghana. It would not behave any differently. The problem I find is that the mind, the collective mind of the people are not one in order for that to happen, because if something happens and it behaves that way, the bosom is intelligent to know that it cannot, because they have different laws and different customs here. In order, you have to explain this. Suppose, okay, the bosom catches someone and they go to the police, oh, that's catching me, this witch, blah, blah, blah. They call me this, and they're going to do investigation. They're going to actually say, you have something that is harming people. And that, so the bosom is very intelligent. It will not quite go that route to do that. But if we have our land, and the one thing about it, you can't have shrine and function without land and ownership of land, you know. And I was telling you about a story I was watching about the Akoposom Kubi people in Ghana from the Volta area. They were trying to fight for their autonomy. I hope I pronounced the name properly. But they say, we are not Ashanti, we are not a Khan, we are these people. And they're fighting to say, we have our sacred land, we want our land, you know, and therefore they're fighting for autonomy. And that's what we have to do here. We have to have sacred land by which we can bring our bosom and say, this is our domain. Native Americans have it. They have, whether they call them reservations, which is not a nice word, but they have land. So in us to do that, we need land. And that's what I respect about the village or the Tunji. They have at least land, which it says theirs. And do whatever you want to. And the bosom will seal and protect and say, whatever here functions, it will function in that rule. But we're all on the same page and all have the same mind in order to function that way. So until we can function as one, it's hard for us to bring the bosom here to function in that capacity, because we're not all thinking alike in terms of that. But we all have to come in agreement and say, this is who we are, this is our belief, this is our custom, and no matter what, no one can deviate from it. We're all contributing to making it grow strong and become a reality for us. So I think that's a problem we have to really address and solve in order to make these bosoms, which we say come from Ghana. And if we're going to call them that, then you have to understand what it is and its nature, and feed that. You know, learn the things that make the bosom functions properly, that taps into you. And the language is very crucial. Learning the language, learning the customs, and it's like a broken record. I say, oh, you know, learn a Sisidra, Eme, Proverbs, Abramo, Chine Puma, Chami Puma, Adinkra. You learn all a Sisidra, All of these are language and things that can come and talk to us and help guide us to function within our culture, because the ancestors have been here from time.
You might want to give them the English translations for those things.
Oh, well, well, Abramu's gold weight, a Sisijai stool with carvings, or chime is the staff that chime have with an emblem on top of it, which is his totem that tells you his family and his role and his function. So wherever he goes, he takes that and representing his family. Chinya Poma is the umbrella that has a function on it, that during Yam Festival, or the chiefs that has something that is the totem that is associated with them, you know, and Ms Proverbs and Brahmo, you know, and gold weight. So all of these things are knowledge-based things that we have to acquire in our toolkit in order to function with a comb, because the more we have in our brain, the bosom will come and shuffle it and make sense out of it and to solve our dilemmas, because we can't say we can come up with a new way of doing things that our ancestors haven't done. They would have, if we say civilization begins on the continent and it evolved from there, they've experienced and gone through everything humanity can dream of in solving every issue, a problem. We think we don't have anything that is so new or variant that they could not have solved, that the shrines cannot have solved. We just have to provide the environment for it to function that way. And it will by all means protect us and guide us and help us find new ways to interpret and function in that. But we need that knowledge base.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Is there a part 2?
Meaning a book?
Yes.
Well, I have a lot of more information. Some I find even more fascinating. I mean, I like writing the book, but I have other information which is like takes it in another world. And why is that? Because I matured. I find as I matured more, my questions and my investigation became more insightful. Back then, you're reading novice in a world that is beginners, you know, and understanding things. But as I began to mature more, I got deeper into things and understanding how this world functions, and I totally submerged in it. And I have other things, and Nana Konodu and I have talked about that, you know, and originally I was going to attach it to this, and his advice is, no, let's keep it separate, let's keep it for the other years. And so I have all of that. I mean, those are exciting. It's like why Daro came to family, the down, dong, 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 that was never part of our comb. Never. It came why. What
is it called? What is it called?
Daro. Daro, or what they call the Gogo Bell. That's not a proper term. That's not the right. But Daro is announcement. It's like a news. Well, it's like it keeps. Why that was never part of a comb rhythm. It came. It was introduced. You know, and there's a song, Wakom Daro, Amakwe, Amuse, Kwekwakan Hore Jamarifu, Akom Daro, Amakwe, Amuse. So we sung Possess Daro. You know, we have songs that do, and also another book I want to write, and this is talking about songs and the function of songs. With songs are prose, they are historical, they talk about character, they talk about the bosom, they talk about how this world functions, and also metaphorical. And they talk about if you shake the tree and something fall on you, why are you afraid? Then why are you shaking the tree? So they have songs that talks about those things, you know, and say, won't throw, I don't fear. If I shake the tree and something fall on me, I'm a mayor bema, I don't fear. So it's saying that if you do something and it happens, whatever consequences, you're not afraid. So you have songs that talks about these things that I'm thinking of writing and talking about all these things and bringing them up, because it's a world that is fascinating, and it talks about history of people, what happens, what the role the bosom did in terms of saving people. And this is what we have to understand how bosom function. When people are in plight and think, the bosom comes and saves you. The story is there. We are that way. Our bosom can do the same. They don't differ. They will have function like Harriet Tubman. You know, she saved people. That's how the bosom saved. But she said, if only those realized they were saved, I would save more. But they will do it. And they will create a history and a story that we can all tell from generation to generation. We have to tap into this and make it function in that capacity. And so this is what the things that I'm thinking about doing that I think we need to understand. And the key is within the songs. The songs are the essence of everything. The songs is a conversation on many levels, not just for a poem. That's one part of it, but it's about life and mystery and history of who we are, our identity. You know, there's a what is it? Yeah, so Aurora is a bosom. Okay, what is the song talking about? Then you don't have to know the history of the bosom. Aurora during the times where he will talk softly. Very calmly. He said, oh, your enemies are coming from this city. They're coming after you. Go here before they come to this. So the bosom will wake people up in the middle of the night to save them and take them to other places so that during the Ashanti Wars, you hear all these stories. That's why these bosoms are famous, because they saved and protected people and took them to Ivory Coast and secured them, and then after it brought them back. So these bosoms are as part of your life. We can do the same here with all of the problems we encounter if we come together to do that. It won't happen any other way. And the only way to do that is to tap into the resources and the mystery of these bosom so they will behave and function that way. And I think that's what I learned about Bono Okom. And it's the only place I know it is from my experience. That's the only world I know. And I can only speak on that. Others have to tell their own stories, but that's our story. And so I like to write these songs and talk about them. Like, you know, some Bwame, Atano Bwame, Benyakunubore, the Okomfo say, hey, I trained for 3 years and I gave up all temptations. I didn't take a man. I didn't sleep. I didn't do all of this. I did all this for you to bosom. Now that I'm finished and complete, now come and bring something to me. Help me to do this. Bring me a husband. Bring me a wife. Bring me this. And so we have these songs which the Okomfo sings that I did this. And you hear those things that is saying this is how the bosom feels because you've done something. It will reward you. You will benefit from it. It's not in vain. So again, goes back to the mind, the sunsum of the Okomfo and how you're trained, and the right mind and attitude is very crucial to learn Okom. Otherwise, you're not doing what we call Tete Okom. You're doing something else. And that's fine, but it's not what we practice Tete Okom.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you. Are there any questions we have for Nana Sakyi? Are there any additional questions? It is now 8:53. We were supposed to end 30 minutes ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But look, I'm happy to continue the conversation because I think it's fascinating. But I also want to be respectful of people's time.
Sure.
So does anyone have any questions you would like to ask Nana in reference to his book? If you haven't received the book, please go out and get it. It is a fascinating read. It is some very, very good information in the book. As a matter of fact, I think for all of us who have trained as a Okomfo, I think it's a must read. You need to read it so you can have something to compare your training to in reference to what Nana did. Because I know I look at it, I'm like, well, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. No, we didn't do that. I mean, and that's not a knock on my teachers, my training. It was just that it's different and it's just different. I mean, even just the medicines alone is one thing, you know what I'm saying? So Okomfos here in America, I think what we've taken from Okom is probably more the spiritual, psychological stuff, but like the whole healing, the whole medicines, all that stuff that was part of this training, I don't know if half of us got that in terms of learning all the different medicines and herbs and what does what. And again, that whole thing about knowing what works here in America to help us. I did have a question for you that I forgot. So I found that it was interesting. You got sick in the book. You talk about getting sick.
Oh, yeah.
It was amongst a whole bunch of healers, but you went to the hospital. I'm like, what you going to the hospital for?
Well, again, they call me Bruni because to them, I come with a different mindset. They don't challenge you. They don't know that I come with Western mind thinking. And what do we do here in the West when you get sick?
But,
So
mhm.
they did not want to challenge that because they didn't know me well enough.
Uh,
So they took me to the hospital because they thought maybe, you know, this is his mind. But if I was like I am now, say, no, I want indigenous medicine to heal. But at the same token, they're very practical. They don't show bias to healing. Sometimes they work together, the hospital and healers work together. Sometimes there are things that you need to go to the hospital, especially in life-threatening and emergency situation. It's practical. It can do it. But then for maintenance, you can do other things and deal with the healing. So I was at a point where I didn't realize I had malaria, and literally I was dying and didn't know that. So I was at the point where I couldn't walk. They had to carry me physically and take me, pull down a taxi. And one day, and I told the man, I said, he said, "You feel like I'm dying?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I know you have malaria." And I was out for 11 days or so, seriously sick, and which I documented, you know, with the malaria. But to them, they didn't know me to say, okay, how do we deal with him? Because I come from somewhere different. So that's why. That is why. So they were very practical in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this. This has been wonderful. Again, this is going once, twice, 3 times. Anyone has anything you would like to ask Nana before we close it up for tonight?
Well, you know, I pose to them that we really, based on what transpired, consider what we want to do with our home here in America. Where do we want to take it? And what are we willing to do to take it to its high points, you know, and not show bias, you know. I find that the way we practice a home is not to take for you to lose your identity. If you are Latte, you are Sante, or whatever, Ga, or wherever you are, you can still be that. We train you without you losing your identity, because like I said, they train people from all over Ghana, from way up in other areas, even from Ivory Coast. People come there to train, and they go back to the town, not losing their identity, but they just teach the Busum how to function within your cultural framework without saying you're Bono. No, you don't have to. The training may be of that, but the Busum is the Busum from where town it is. They don't show bias. It's still from that region. It's still that town, but we can train it to function in a capacity that I think can benefit us all. It's just something to think about. It's not engraved in stone, but people will follow their destiny where they're happy. But that's how we train people.
Nana Kwesi Konadu, you have any closing words you'd like to add? Since you opened it up, I guess it's only befitting we had you close it. Nana Konadu, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. I want to thank you all for your patience, because certainly we ran over time, but that's always a good thing if people want to hang around for more than what they came for. But as the elders would say to me, we can't speak about everything in one sitting. We have to say something for next time. So hopefully next time we can have some more nutritious insights, knowledge, information sharing, perspectives, and then use those to push forward, what we are discussing, and let it be something that radiates further than our own individual selves, our immediate families, and into a larger set of communities, people within the African world that can benefit from what we have been put on this earth to do. So for Nana Sakyi, I thank him for allowing us, the Diaspora Africa Press, to be the vehicle for sharing this nutrition. And for Brother Kwesi Moore, thank you for arranging this wonderful virtual meeting. And for everyone who stayed or who was a part of this wonderful event, we hope you can get the book, but more importantly, just join the conversation and join the work and join the effort that's ongoing in anywhere you can, however you can, wherever you are, with the resource you're working with. Thank you.
So Nana Sakyi, you want to give them the website where they could leave information if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, my wife, you want to do it? I think you're gonna post it, or I think she'll put it in the chat.
compa.pa.org, compa,
Companaripa.org.
right. Donna Coach was placed it into the chat. All right, Donna, well, thank you again. Thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate the conversation. Tell somebody about this book. Let's continue the conversation. And you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk soon.
Thank you very much, Nana. Thank you all for coming and sharing in this moment. And again, I deeply appreciate it.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.